Good evening. It's truly an honor to be in Jaipur, be it virtually or physically. And thank you very much, Dr. Sharma and Dr. Sharma, for the invitation. I'm truly honored. It's a privilege to be here, although it is very unfortunate that it would not be possible to be there physically this year. I'm going to be giving two talks in succession, and the first one is the evolving strategy for the control of lipid disorders. Is the strategy going to become targeted and personalized? So, the lipoproteins are genetically associated with cardiovascular disease and hence can be targeted with therapeutic agents. Many novel therapies have really been introduced in the recent times. And as you can see here in this lipoprotein illustration, where you can see the diameter on the x-axis and the density on the y-axis, with the high density lipoproteins being on the left and the triglyceride rich lipoproteins being on the right and on the higher part of the graph. Three most important strategies that have been used against these increased lipoproteins. For example, the one which has been used to decrease the LDL, they have included the antisense oligonucleotides against the apolipoprotein B or the small inhibitors of RNA and the antibodies against PCSK9. Against the lipoprotein A, small a, the antisense oligonucleotide as well as the small inhibitors of RNA have been used against the apolipoprotein little a. And for the triglyceride-rich lipoproteins, ApoC3 and angiopoietin-like 3 oligonucleotides, antibodies, as well as the inhibitors of the RNA have been used. The three major strategies which have been used for the subcellular strategies, they include the antisense oligonucleotides, small inhibitors of RNAs, and RNA slash DNA aptamers. For the antisense oligonucleotides, we use the single-stranded nucleotides. On the other hand, for the small inhibitors of RNA, we have to use the double standard mechanisms. And mechanisms are pretty similar. And as you can see in the aptamers, which are less commonly used, the aptamers are used less commonly. The antisense drugs that target RNA, they do so via the Watson-Crick base pairing. And as you can see in this one, that in the nucleus, with the transcription, the mRNA is formed, and this message, when comes out of the nucleus, it would code for a specific protein. In its inhibition, if the antisense oligonucleotide is produced and it is modified, and it goes and binds to the mRNA within the nucleus, the RNase H1 is able to cleave the message and the oligonucleotide is released again so as to be used again. And that is the reason that they have a very long half-life and they only need to be used very infrequently, which could be on the weekly, every 2 weeks, every month, or even twice a year type of a use of these oligonucleotides. The advantage is that as there is less RNA, less protein is produced. And since there is no protein, we do not have to use any technology or any strategy which goes against the protein. And it is, in fact, prevention of even the protein formation. And as I have always said about this, that this is probably the most physiologic way of reducing the molecules which are not the favorable molecules for our homeostasis. The targeting has been improved with the GalNAcs, and as you can see here, the GalNAc is able to bind to the ASGPR or the acylo-glycoprotein receptor on the liver. There are large number of these receptors which are present on every liver cell, and that can recycle itself multiple times during its life cycle, up to about 250 times, and there are about 500,000 to 1 million copies of the ASGPR which exist on every cell, suggesting thereby that if we can target them by any means, we should be able to target the liver cells very effectively. So the GalNAc or N-acetyl galactose, it is it binds to the ASGPR receptor and it is targeted specifically to the liver cells. And as the molecule is carried in, so for example, if we have any antisense oligonucleotide that can be carried with the help of GalNAc into the liver cells specifically, where once it is in the clathrin coated pits, it endosomally it releases uh, the the receptor which can be recycled back, and the ligand which was sent can be able to target the mRNA within the nuclei. So if you look at the right hand panel here, that by adding the GalNAc, we are able to increase the efficiency and potency of the drug by approximately 20 to 30 folds. Now, the most important of these drugs, which has been recently used, is the small inhibitor of the RNA, inclisiran, which targets the PCSK9. We have seen recently the success of the antibodies against the PCSK9, which have now been available for more than 2 to 3 years for the clinical use, and which have demonstrated significant reduction in the LDL-C. And recently, in the two trials, the Orient 10 and Orient 11, 10 being done in United States and 11 in Europe, in the patients with the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, 50% of the reduction in the LDL was shown within the 3 months, within first 3 months of the initiation. And it is only needed about 2 times a year, suggesting thereby the importance of these molecules which have a long lasting effect. This agent is now waiting for the regulatory approval for the clinical use. The other most important thing is against the LP little a, and as we have not realized that the LP little a is a widely prevalent risk factor. And as you can see that more than 30 milligram percent is considered to be a high level. So the people with 60 milligram per deciliter, the prevalence is approximately 20%. In the United States alone, there are 64 million people. In Europe, the European Union, about 150 million people, and globally, about 1.4 billion people who have hyper LP little a syndrome. And essentially, that makes it one of the important targets to be dealt with. When we look at the genetic determinants of the coronary artery disease and compare the LPA genetic disposition, you would see that LPA seems to be even more important than 9p21, LDL receptor gene, as well as PCSK9, which are considered to be three most important factors in the LDL genomics. If you look at various meta-analyses, Mendelian randomizations, or genome-wide association, you would see that at approximately the level of about 30 milligram percent, that the risk starts to increase for the cardiovascular disease. Here also in the Mendelian randomization, you will see it clear of the line of unity on the right hand side of the unity, and you would see that approximately the 30 and higher level of the lipoprotein little a starts to become hazardous as and its association with the cardiovascular disease. The genome-wide association also shows that, and as you can see, that there's a linear relationship between the LP little a levels and the hazard ratios. The LP little a was first described by Carey Berg back in 1963. And as you can see here, that this is an LDL-like molecule, and it also has the plasminogen derived kringles of apolipoprotein A, and also has the oxidized phospholipids associated with it. Now, the alleles could be of the Kringle 4, 2, type 2. Kringles could have multiple types of presence, like approximately 40 isoforms are available, and it is inherited from both the parents. Now, it can affect the cardiovascular disease by three mechanisms. First, that there is an heterogeneity because of the LDL molecule. There is an antifibrinolytic activity because of the apolipoprotein little a, or the plasminogen, and then it is also pro-inflammatory because of the presence of the oxidized LDL. And two most important phenotypes are the presence of coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, as well as the significant aortic stenosis. The treatments which have been used, as you all know, the most important thing is the use of the statins and the PCSK9 so as to reduce the LDL. However, even with the people who are on the highest doses of statins or have been treated with PCSK9, in addition to statins, the decrease is not significant enough. And as you can see here, that even on statins, the hazard ratio is maintained as there is a gradual increase in the lipoprotein little a levels in spite of the maximum doses of statins. The same can be seen with the PCSK9, and the trial was the NSCOW trial, where also it was demonstrated that the maximum reduction that you can achieve in the cardiovascular disease in the presence of the high lipoprotein A would be approximately 15%. The LP little a allows us to reclassify the cardiovascular risk. For example, here you would see that in 4 out of 10 people with the intermediate risk, they can be downgraded to low risk, and approximately 13 out of the 100 people or 120 people would be upgraded to a higher risk in such cases. Therefore, there are various guidelines which have suggested as to how to incorporate the lipoprotein little a in the management of the patients with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, and also for the management of the dyslipidemias. It is suggested that the lipoprotein little a measurement should be considered at least once in each adult person's lifetime to identify those with very high inherited lipoprotein little a levels of more than 180 milligrams, who may have a lifetime risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease equivalent to the risk associated with heterozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. And this is going to have a significant clinical implication, as these guidelines have only been presented about a year ago. Now there is the ICD codes available for the elevated lipoprotein A, so these entities can be billed as well. One of the recent trials, which was presented this year by Dr. Sam Simikas, who has done the maximum work on the lipoprotein little a management. In this study, where the APO small a, little a, LRX was used, which is now the generic name is the Pelacarsen, in the phase 2 trials. As you can see here, that there were 54 people in each cohort, and the randomization was to 5 is to 1. And this treatment was enacted for 6 to 12 months with the antisense oligonucleotide, followed by a 16-week period of follow-up. The primary endpoint was the mean change in the lipoprotein little a from baseline to week 25 to 27, depending upon the dose regimen. And there were multiple secondary endpoints looking at the various other factors of the lipoprotein little a molecule, as well as the effect on the LDL concentration as well. And as you can see here, that these are various regimes, that 20 milligram every 4 weeks, 40 milligrams every 4 weeks, 20 milligram every 2 weeks, 60 milligram every 4 weeks, and 20 milligrams every week. And as you can see here, that the last two have done the best. However, when we look at the subjects who are able to reduce their lipoprotein levels to less than 50 milligram, are almost 100% in the 20 milligram every week dosage schedule. The next trial, which is now being conducted by Novartis, it will be called the Horizons Cardiovascular Outcome Trial, which will be including more than 7,500 patients for a follow-up of more than 4 years. And the trial would require approximately 1,000 events for the statistically significant results. And there is a co-primary endpoint in this, that the people who have had more than 70 or more than 90 milligram per deciliter LP little a levels, as to what would be the time to the first major adverse cardiac event in these cases. So as you can see here, that the people who will be included will be from this red zone, that is those who have got at least more than 70 milligram per deciliter levels of the lipoprotein little a, and it is anticipated that the median level will be about 90 milligrams, and the expectation would be that the use of Pelacarsen would be able to push them back into the normal range, and the green range is considered to be the range less than 50 milligram per deciliter. The trial has started recruiting the subjects. Now, the ApoC3 is the next molecule for targeting the triglyceride-rich lipoprotein abnormalities. And as you very well know, that the apolipoprotein C3 is produced in the liver, and it is a key regulator of the triglyceride-rich lipoprotein hepatic uptake and the plasma triglyceride levels through the lipoprotein lipase dependent as well as the independent pathways. The epidemiological studies have shown that the ApoC3, which is the most important component of these, they predict the cardiovascular disease level, and the loss of function mutations where it becomes less effective. It results in reduced triglycerides and triglyceride rich lipoproteins, increase in the high density lipoprotein cholesterol, and 40% reduction in the risk of cardiovascular disease as compared to those who are non-carriers. The hypertriglyceridemia can result in the familial chylomicronemia as well as the multifactorial chylomicronemia syndrome, which is associated with increased risk for the cardiovascular events, even in the patients receiving the appropriate and maximal lipid lowering therapy. And obviously, the increase in the triglyceride levels is also associated with major medical issues such as the acute pancreatitis, as well as the high risk of cardiovascular disease. So in this trial, which was conducted by Axia and was presented in just about a couple of months ago, actually a month ago, in the European Society of Cardiology meeting. It included only about little over 100 patients, And as you can see that there are the four regimes which have been used. And in this RNA inhibition trial, the primary endpoint was to see the mean percent change in the fasting triglycerides from the baseline for a treatment duration of minimum of 6 months and maximum of 12 months, and then a follow up to about 3 months thereafter. So the inclusion criteria were the clinical diagnosis of cardiovascular disease, whether it is coronary disease, stroke, or peripheral artery disease, and fasting serum triglyceride of more than 200, but less than 500. So not very high levels, but the modest level, which is what we often see in our clinical practice. And these patients must be on the standard of care preventative therapy for known cardiovascular disease risk factors. And as you can see here, the primary endpoint, which is the percent change in the triglyceride from 0 to 6 months, you would see that at least the last three dosage, they do very well in terms of significant reduction, which is at least a 60% decrease in the triglycerides level. However, the one which brings the levels down to the normal is the one when we use 50 milligrams every 4 weeks. As you can see here, that 91% of them are able to reduce the levels to less than 150 milligram percent. And approximately 50% of the subjects even drop their triglyceride levels below 100 milligram percent. And the last one that I would like to present here is the angiopoietin-like 3, which is also a key regulator of the triglycerides and cholesterol. And again, the angiopoietin-like 3 is a genetically validated target. It is again secreted by the liver as an inhibitor of the lipoprotein lipase and endothelial lipase. So the function is quite like what you saw for the ApoC3 type of association. And the loss of function mutations in angiopoietin like 3 is associated with familial combined hypolipidemia and reduced triglyceride levels, reduced triglyceride rich lipoprotein level, reduced plasma LDL level, and reduced risk of coronary artery disease, but somehow is also associated, possibly because of the endothelial lipase, also associated with decrease in the high density lipoprotein as well. The people with the loss of function mutations or the decreased angiopoietin 3 level have the reduced risk of CVD, again suggesting that it would be a nice target for reducing the triglyceride rich lipoproteins. So the study, which was recently published in the European Heart Journal, used vupanorsen, which is again the RNA inhibitor molecule used in 105 subjects with three kind of dosing schedule. As you can see for 6 months here, 20, 40, and 80 milligram of vupanorsen, and was compared to the placebo here. And these were all the monthly equivalent doses here would be 80, 40, and 80. So you would see that the primary endpoint again has been the fasting triglyceride change from the baseline to the end at 6 months of each group compared to the placebo. Again, this was a multi-center, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, and the key inclusions were the fasting plasma triglyceride level of more than 150 milligrams per DL, or type 2 diabetes with the hemoglobin A1C of more than 6.5%, and the hepatic steatosis, where the hepatic fat fraction was at least 8% by the MRI. And again, you would see that approximately 50% reduction was seen within 60 months by these two dosage. So the time, ladies and gentlemen, is coming when we would be able to target on a personalized basis. we'll be able to identify the risk in a much better manner. We would also be able not only to look at the genotypic characterization of these patients, we'll also be able to look at the phenotypic characterization of these patients and as to where and how early should we start to intervene in these subjects. And when we need to intervene, where exactly do we need to intervene? How exactly do we need to intervene? And at what level of lipoprotein would be the best results which are likely to be obtained would be the way to go in future. Thank you.